Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Adobe Live. My name's Ryan Selvey, and we're really excited to have Jorge Rodriguez back on the show. Hey, good morning.
What's up? Good morning, guys. How we doing?
Doing good. It's a nice, gross, disgusting day in New York. So, how's it
Oh
where you
yeah.
are?
Uh, I mean, kind of 72 and sunny. You know the vibe. So
Yeah, it
sorry to
sounds
flex
gross
on
and
you like
disgusting.
that. Yeah.
Excited to have you back. I guess for anyone who missed the first one, we worked on some sports design, but is a good kind of introduction to you. And even if they want to check out previous stuff as well, do you want to
Yeah.
give a quick rundown of yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So my name's Jorge. I'm a graphic designer. I work in the National Football League. Living out here in LA. Been designing for close to 7 years at this point. Been able to work with some really cool people. But yeah, I mean, I love like teaching design. So when I was asked to do the live stream about a month and a half ago, I was like, dude, let's lock in. Like I want to show you guys how I make cool stuff and yeah, like no gatekeeping. So today we got some really cool stuff. I'm super excited to talk about. Player treatment is like my go-to. So we'll be breaking it down. But yeah, I mean that's a little bit about me.
Great.
Just love
And I'm gonna
sports.
go ahead. I'm gonna share your screen. I see that you have your Instagram pulled up.
That's
So
right.
Jorge.psd on
Yeah,
Instagram.
you got it.
And what do you normally post here?
Yeah, so it's kind of a mix of personal and Chargers work that I'll be doing. But recently, it's been a lot of Olympics, and that's kind of the theme for today. Is we're going to be building out some like Olympic type content, which I'm super excited for. These are like the past few posts that I had. I had one do really well. This one was
Oh
like
man,
my
that's great. That
magnum opus.
461,000. That's
Yeah, it
crazy.
was it was pretty
Uh,
crazy. It was kind of blowing up at work, and so it's pretty hard to stay focused
I
on the
wonder if
task
she
there.
saw it.
But
Like you have to imagine when it hits those kind of numbers, like you have to imagine that
dude.
maybe she saw it. But I mean, she also had a lot of like attention on her,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Like,
oh for sure.
I'm sure she was in a
I
bunch of
don't think
different
she made
stuff.
it around to the post, but man, I wish. But had this one too. So had
Oh
Jack
yeah, there.
Hughes
See, two for
winning the
two. That's
gold
amazing.
medal. Yeah, so I kind of riding that Olympic wave a little bit.
Wait,
So
can we pull that one back up real quick?
yeah.
You have the blood on the Nike logo.
Yeah.
Did you add that in?
I mean, I'm a
Yeah,
designer. I
man.
have to. Come on
Yeah,
now.
that's great. You even put it on
Yeah.
the ribbons.
Yeah. So
But yeah, so
those
like
two were sick.
that's remarkable. And so those kind of just like you just decided to do those for fun. You were kind of just feeling hyped about
Yeah. Yeah, I
the
mean it was kind of a funny story too because both of these I've been trying to make more video content recently. So, I'm trying to get up early, trying to find time to make graphics. And so I made these during my lunch break at work. I like, I got to go off campus and I went to Chick-fil-A when I made this one right here with Alyssa Liu. And it looked so wonky, I'm sure if someone came behind me and just saw like me like zoomed in on someone's teeth and they're smiley, I'm sure they would have been like, "What is he doing?" But yeah, I mean, ended up doing really well, and yeah, but kind of stuff like that, just anything that mixes sports with culture is kind of like my forte, and a lot of the reason why some of these stick out is like the player treatment, which makes
yeah.
people more dramatic, cinematic, and that's kind of what these kind of show, and I think my style kind of comes through in those types of things. So we'll be talking about that today. So, I'm so excited.
I also like that you said cinematic for it because when you had that Chargers post, the very first one is
This one
really
here?
reminiscent, kind of like a Star Wars poster, or
Yeah,
those like traditional Indiana Jones ones,
for sure.
where they're kind of all breaking out their different sizes and stuff.
Yeah,
And then obviously like the lighting and kind of the type, like all of it goes together. But when it's looking
right.
towards it, it is. And then you introduce yourself obviously at the beginning with working with NFL stuff, but specifically you are with the Chargers, right?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
cool. Yeah, yeah.
The best team in
Not just your
LA is
favorite
what they're
team. I
saying.
mean, is your favorite
No.
team now, of course.
Yes.
Yes,
Legally
yes,
obliged to
no
say that.
question, it
Yeah.
is. um, we also have a bunch of people in chat. Hello to everyone. We have Patrick and we have Zach,
Good
Charlie,
morning. Good
Jacob.
morning.
Everyone saying hello. Thank you for
Nice,
putting the
nice.
previous link to the previous stream in there, Jacob. Appreciate that. Zach's calling you a goat. Charlie saying let's go. And
Appreciate
everyone else
that.
is saying good morning. So if you guys have questions, especially if you need specification on anything, if you need clarification on things that we're looking at, things that are editing, if we hit a keyboard shortcut, you don't know what happens. Like,
Yeah,
please speak up, let us know.
for
We love to
sure.
hear from you. And also hello to Michael Gonzalez, who's also calling you the GOAT. So
Mike, that's a coworker of mine, Mike Gonzalez. He's a amazing. Well, he does a little bit of photo, does a lot of retouching. Yeah, he's a killer. So big shout out to
so
Mike.
is it okay that you are on stream? Are you supposed to be working right
Yeah,
now?
no,
Like, is he
I
gonna be
took
mad? Like,
2 hours of vacation today to be able to
oh,
do this. So,
right on. All right, we're gonna make
yeah,
this a
so
vacation then, right?
everything's locked and loaded. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, no, awesome,
Cool.
awesome. Yeah, and back to that with the shortcuts and stuff like that. Definitely, there's a lot that goes into something like this, and I've got the tendency to kind of go pretty quick through this just because that's my job. But definitely, if you got questions, we're here to answer them. We're not gatekeeping. We're ready to go. So yeah, stop me at any time if things get too quick. But yeah, I'm ready to get into
Yeah,
it. What do you think,
let's hop
Ryan?
on into it. So where are we gonna
Yeah.
start? Uh, where are we gonna start with this?
So Firefly boards, I think anyone that's worked with me or maybe seen my content for the past couple of weeks knows that boards is like my new favorite toy. And we started talking about this in the last stream. I was kind of new to it, didn't really know what it could do, but we're gonna kind of show how it can be used as a tool to kind of learn how to pinpoint what we do need to edit in a photo to make it look more cinematic. But for our non-design crowd, right, who
Right.
don't know what photo treatment or player treatment might be, I have this little diagram where it's kind of going to show you what we're going to be actually talking about today. So the gist of it is that player treatment is just how you stylize a photo, how you get across a mood when you're designing something. And so, if you want something to be really exciting and energetic, you'll obviously find a cool photo that replicates that. But then also you want the jersey colors to pop. You want like the veins to be popping out. Like you want them to look
Not the
cinematic.
veins.
Well, it's whatever. But or if you want it to be more muted, you'll have like softer shadows or softer light. It won't be as like in your face. So that all kind of falls under that umbrella of player treatment. So how you do that like is camera raw. That's like one of the big skills we'll be talking about today. Lighting and shadows will show how you paint it in and how you get it looking dramatic, and selective color. So those are kind of the main points and kind of the main tools that we'll be going through to get your designs more elevated. So that's
Right on.
that's kind of the
Also, a
roadmap
great
for today.
screenshot if anyone needs to kind of go
Yeah,
back or anything.
please,
Obviously, this is all
please.
available as a replay, so you can always come back. And also, this is stuff that we're going to be touching on today, but just
Yeah,
as a nice kind of overview. I love that you put it all out here and kind of
yeah.
have it all set up.
Yeah, because
Thank you for
when I
doing
was
that.
talking with Emily to kind of set up this stream, we were trying to figure out the right term to use. Like, I think she wanted to put like dramatic players or something like that, and I wanted to put player treatment because the industry like norm. I don't like that I'm saying that, but that's how we describe this is player treatment. But in case nobody knew what that was, or you're not directly affiliated with sports design, now you know. So.
That's great. Love that.
But better than reading it and explaining it is seeing it visually. So I've got a comparison. So this is a graphic that I had made, I think about a year ago. But you can kind of see here that on the left-hand side, you got a player that doesn't have any treatment applied to him. It's just a stock photo that's just in there in this environment. And obviously, the composition looks good and everything there looks pretty keyed in, but it's not dramatic. You don't
Yeah.
feel like it's impactful, right? But then you look to the right and you see, okay, you got the white of the jersey reflecting this blue color in the background. You see the skin is a lot more even. There's not any like weird shadows or any blips like that. And then obviously you get some shadows like, falling on the leg, where, his arm kind of crosses over his body. Basically just painting in where you would imagine the light is hitting or not hitting. It's all player treatment. So this is kind of
Yeah.
the visual of why it's so important and how it can elevate your work.
Okay. Also, seeing some great comments in the chat. Already seeing a comment from I think it's D Benavides saying
Okay.
that as a interior sports facility designer, this is a live stream I'm looking forward to, especially when
Nice.
creating wall wraps or signs with players
Sure.
incorporating within the art. That's really cool. Would love to hear more about your job because that's very cool.
Yeah.
And I always love that sort of stuff. And then Charlie is saying, what type of graphics tend to perform best with the fans?
Oh, see. That's a great question because I think you can go two ways. I think from a professional perspective with like the Chargers, I would definitely say the things that perform the best are, we talked about this in our last stream, like the high action, high octane photos, players yelling, screaming, like fans love that. Like I
Yeah.
love that. You know, I'm a fan of a few different teams, big Mavericks guy. And so whenever I see like a Cooper Flag, photo where he's all hyped or whatever, I get hyped.
Right.
But for my personal work, it's definitely a lot more subdued, like more relying on like I don't know. I mean, you can even see here, like between, Edwards on the left, on the right, like the drama, he's not yelling, he's not screaming. It's more just the composition of his body. I like that. Like for me, that's the stuff that performs well with my work. I think people like, that it's not exactly like in your face. It's a little bit more subtle. I like that. So for me, that works better personally, but professionally, definitely the yelling and the screaming and the flexing and the taunting and everything like that. Anything that'll get you a yellow flag, thrown on the field. That's kind of what people like. So
Right. Okay.
that's a little bit of that. But yeah, so keeping with the Olympics theme, we were talking about that. We have this hockey player. This is a amazing stock photo that I was able to commandeer. I looked at a lot of different ones, but this was my favorite. And then we have this ice rink in the back. So one of the
Right.
tools that is in Firefly boards, and one of the things that I was really stoked to kind of play around with, is this addition of the partner models of like Google Gemini. And you can do this really cool thing. I'll show you here. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this photo on the left, this hockey player, and I'm going to put him into this scene. And I'm going to ask Google Gemini to kind of give me an idea of what that would look like with a little bit
Yeah.
of lighting, a little bit of shadows built into that software. And then that'll give us kind of a jumping off point of what we can do in Photoshop and how we can elevate it from there. So I'm going to get rolling with
Yeah.
this.
Lately, my thing has always been kind of like it gets you at like even if it gets you 10% started, then it
Oh,
is
yeah,
gonna be like, better than starting at zero. So even if you
sure.
are just using it as inspiration, or if you're using it to then mask out, or you're, then using it as a base, like it's always still gonna get you kind of started somewhere.
Sure. And so I've also like messed with it here. So, try not to look at that because I was really playing around with it.
Go
But
away.
one of the big things to really key on is like the prompting. And I've found some people have asked me like through DMs, how do I prompt certain things on Firefly? I don't really do a lot of stuff with AI, and definitely, more it's like a sketch thing for me, kind of something to jump off with. But the prompting is really important. So in this case, I have it written down here because I don't want to get it wrong. But I said harmonize subject, and then I'll specifically key in on hockey player so it doesn't get confused.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
then into
we have
our
a few questions in
scene.
the chat, but I don't want to
Yeah,
distract you as you're writing
please.
this out.
No, no, no,
So,
please.
you sure? All right. First one that multiple people are excited to hear the answer to is, where's the best place to get high quality player images?
Okay, I like that one. So I would probably say going on, I have a video on this. It's a little bit harder to describe. But what I try to do is I'll go to Google and there's an advanced image search function. And if you look up a player, right, it'll show you all these photos, high quality, low quality. But you can specifically do the advanced search function. If you do, I think above 2 megapixels or megabytes, it'll show you photos that are like blown up, high quality. And that's how I normally source them. And it's been awesome because I finding players like or finding photos is like the hardest thing to do because you'll find a lot of cool photos that they're look, they were taken with a brick and it's like I can't use this, like this stinks. But that's what I would recommend. I got a video on that I could probably send through a little bit later.
Oh, that'd be great. We could also throw it in the Discord too, if anyone's going back and watching this, then the
For
replay.
sure.
So make sure you guys check out the Adobe Live Discord. Also, yeah, lots of activity in the chat. Thanks for being here, guys. And then also, yeah, uh, Durelio, I believe that's how you're going with it. Is says, besides Google image settings, where can you find high quality renders? But that was as you were answering your question, so kind of where you
Mm,
were going with that. Um,
yeah.
and then Charlie saying, with big games or major announcements, I'm sure you have to produce a graphic very quickly. How do you maintain a high level of creativity and quality with a turnaround so short? Do you
Oh
have
man.
templates that you use?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll give big shouts to one of my coworkers, Trevin. He handles a lot of our social posts. So, with free agency coming up and with the draft, like these things, we got information coming down pretty quick. They want the graphic immediately. Building out as much as we can ahead of time is always kind of like best practices. Making sure everything's downloaded locally because we'll save a lot of stuff to a drive, but
Of
in a
course.
pinch, you'll have to download that, get it on your computer, and that can take like an extra 10, 15 minutes, and we don't really want that, right? Okay, I
Yeah.
got the render here. Cool.
Great.
Awesome. So you can see here like how much it already did to kind of show you. Let me exit this out. Like just with that prompt, like
Yeah.
how we can make it dramatic, right? And so if I'm a designer and I'm looking at this, or if I'm like maybe entry level, what do I look for? So when I look at this, I'm seeing that definitely got darker down the middle of the body. I'm seeing that compared to our first photo, which I'll blow up here, the jersey is very white. It's almost like
Yeah.
this icy, like white, like black to white gradient. And then here you do see like the reflection of, the blues, these, dark, almost like indigo colors. They're all coming through in that jersey. So kind of like looking at this photo, being like, okay, like I know what I need to do. I need to add a little bit of blue to the jersey. I need to add a little bit of shadows to the middle of the body.
Yeah.
And then, got this little rim light going around here. So it gives you a little bit of a roadmap. So you don't have to be guessing when you're in Photoshop. Like, hey, how do I color this image? How do I make it look cinematic? Like you have an idea. And this is a good starting point. Obviously, like, we can always level it up a little bit. So that's what we're going to be doing. But this gives you a little bit of a starting point to know, like, kind of address it beforehand.
No, it's great. I mean, it's so clear to see even just from that quick switch around, and even doing something as simple as, to your point, changing the whites in the
Yeah,
jersey, like goes from an idea of like the left feels extremely stock heavy and the one on the
sure.
right feels way more integrated into the space, and with the like dynamic shadows and stuff feel way
Yeah,
more impactful. Also liking the
100%.
reflection of the ice,
Yeah,
even if it is kind of like weird, it's like not
yeah,
necessarily accurate, but also gives
yeah,
you a cool idea of like maybe something that could work there.
for
Um,
sure.
Charlie and Karank have a lot of questions, or maybe it's Kara. Maybe it's Kara. You guys are giving me a hard time with the usernames today. There, some of them are wild, but I'm sorry if I end up calling your name out and you're like, that's not how you split up my username. Just say it in the chat, and then I'll make sure that when I call it out again, I do it right. Also, hello to Valdair. Good to see you again, of course. Um, let's see which one we're gonna go with here. So. And I also don't want to derail you either, so we can also save
Yeah,
questions till later if that's helpful.
yeah.
What
Let me,
what'll
let
work best for
me,
you?
yeah, let me try to get this talked about real quick. So I'm putting these in Photoshop right now. What I'm going to do is do this handy select subject tool we talked about last stream. It's kind of been such a lifesaver. The cutout is like crisp. It's like so crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we can answer questions. We can go through this. It's kind of whatever you guys prefer. I want to make sure that we can, because if we're going through camera raw, I want to make sure we can kind of talk about that in detail because I think that's like the takeaway I think from this. So I'll
All
kind
right. Well,
of
let me
defer
give
to
you just
you.
the heads up of these two, and maybe you can kind of speak to them as you're working through some other stuff, right?
Okay.
So the first one from Charlie is saying, how do you think about maintaining the consistent brand language while still making each graphic feel fresh and emotionally impactful? Which I think is a great question because
Hmm.
obviously, especially when you're working on stuff like the Chargers and stuff, like you have to make sure it feels like the Chargers and it doesn't feel like a different brand,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But then also we have a question that's saying, do you approach these two types of graphics differently from a design perspective? And they're talking about that's a two-part question actually. Okay, so let me
Mhm.
read part of the first. The first one is saying that like some sports graphics are designed for huge moments like buzzer beater or like a
Uh,
big recruiting commitment, right?
right.
While others are routine content like starting lineups or stat updates. With that in mind, they're saying, do you approach those two types of graphics differently from a design perspective? Like, do you intentionally save certain visual elements, textures, or motion styles for bigger moments? That's a big, big question. But
That is a big question. Gosh.
so we can always rephrase it and come back to it. So the
Yeah.
two ones that we have from that moment are the how do you maintain consistent brand language, That was
Uh,
one question. And then the other one was like between the big buzzer beater, big recruiting commitment post versus ones that are like kind of like factual admin updates. Like, do you feel like there's lots of crossover? And then there are
yes.
some other questions, but we will then
Oh
get
my
into that
gosh.
after we hit these questions and do whatever we need
Yeah.
to do on stage. But we're
Yeah.
loving the
So
questions. I'm not shaming you guys for asking
no, I
questions. I
love
just
it.
want to
I
make
love
sure
it
we're balancing
too.
everything.
For sure.
Yeah.
I love it too. I'll answer the first one and then we'll do a little bit of camera raw and I'll answer the second one. So the first one I'd say, how do you keep things consistent across a bunch of different assets? We have a great team and a great creative director that kind of oversees to just make sure that things are hitting our, let's say like design pillars, right? Where we want to make sure that we're highlighting our city or highlighting, certain aspects of like LA culture. As long as that's, the through line between every graphic, we feel pretty confident that it speaks to our brand and it's, building out the different corners of like our creative. So I think that's kind of a great way is like having someone who is able to oversee quality control and kind of keep the, I'll say like the ethos of the brand, like kind of front and center with each piece. I think that's how you keep it consistent. So hopefully that answers it. And then I'm gonna talk about Camera Raw real quick because this is the bread and butter. I kind of already messed with it a little bit, but I'll go back for those that weren't following at first. So in our first image that we saw in Google Gemini, obviously it made it darker. And if you look at our main, move this out of the way here, our main like background image, it's very dark and very moody. And so when I see Camera Raw, like that's what I want to emulate is that darker feel. So I'll do that by kind of lowering the exposure a little bit and anything that, it's kind of trial and error. So anything that we might not get right the first time, we'll go back, we'll adjust. But off my first impressions, like I would want to darken the image, the contrast, I'd want to, lift it up maybe a little bit, not too strong. Highlights, probably bump it up because we want that dramatic feel. So highlights will obviously like, increase the highlights of like the cheeks, the jersey, the lighter parts of the jersey that you see rippling across. Shadows, for me, this is just a personal preference. I always like to bump up the shadows to almost reduce them so you see all the ripples in the jerseys and all the details. I think when you lift shadows, you really get a great like kind of canvas to work with. It kind of evens everything out so you can paint in the lighting and the shadows.
Right.
And so we got whites. I'll bump those up a little bit, kind of make it a little bit more dramatic. And then blacks, I might lower it a little bit, but
All
I'm
right.
liking that.
So, also while you're working on that, Isaiah wants to know if you think there are any underrated Photoshop tools that are helping you when you're designing.
Man, underrated Photoshop tools. I mean, Camera Raw might be one of them. Like I
Yeah.
think we talk about player treatment. I mean, probably spend 85% of the time like in Camera Raw making like a treatment, and I have like a full like these are all my presets that I've made over
Oh,
you know
great.
the last couple years designing, just because they're it's such an awesome tool. You can make one kind of filter or preset and map that onto like 10 different photos, and they all look pretty great because they all kind of have the same textures and lighting or whatever. It's awesome. Like I really do think it's such an awesome tool.
Yeah. Brockton was
But
asking you actually about your preferences on brightness and contrast and exposure and curves, but like since you just kind of showed off those presets, I think that goes to even show that you're approaching each one with literally dozens of different approaches that you can then switch. Um,
well, and that's not to be overwhelming too, because I think that you'll see something like that and you'll just be like, oh, like, there's so many different ways to, skin this cat. Like, where do I even start?
yeah.
Really,
Skin
it
this
comes
cat.
down, well, it's the only thing I can think of. But there's a lot of ways to do the same thing, right? And so, a lot of these I just say because, I don't want to remember how I did it previously.
Hmm.
But I mean, really, the general gist is, to make something dramatic, you'll want to like raise the contrast. To make it more moody, you'll want to lower the exposure. To make it more like high impact, you'll want to raise like the highlights. And like to make it more, subtle, whatever, you'll lift the shadows to where it's all gone. So it's like just these, what is it, six tools just in the light, like that that is where all the variation comes from because each scene is different. But if you mess with this, you mess with these six sliders, like I guarantee you, your photos will come across as more professional, and that's what we really want at the end of the day. Is like that's what gets you jobs, that's what gets you interviews. Is having a photo look like you have command over the lighting, and you do
Yeah.
that through these 6 sliders.
And did you teach yourself
So
lighting?
yeah, I mean, I will give a
Trial and
shout
error.
to Reese Knight, who he's another designer that works in sports. I think he works for the MLB as a, can't remember if it's as a freelancer or as a full-time designer, but he's based out of the UK. And he's got a lot of great videos on like camera raw, gradient maps. Like I would watch those, after I kind of already had a pretty decent understanding of how to use this stuff in Photoshop. But I cannot recommend his videos enough. Anyone who's asked me, via DMs, what videos are out there, I don't refer to them to my own. I've got one, I think, up that talks about it, but Reese's videos are awesome. I think Night X Design, I think, on YouTube, if I'm correct. But yeah, I would definitely recommend his stuff for
Great.
sure.
We have a few more questions, but I'm going to give you just a few moments because we're already halfway through our stream. So I'm going to give you a few moments to just kind of
Yeah,
like, cook in the kitchen, and
yeah, for
then
sure.
I will follow up. I just want to like, Karan and Clinton know that I see your guys' questions. Um, Brock, I also
Sweet.
see your follow up. So I will get to those in just a few minutes, but I do
I love the
want to
questions.
give some time to just work a little bit and keep them coming. I want to keep
Yeah.
seeing your questions and we want to keep answering them. I just, also want to make sure that we have a good balance here.
For sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, kind of building off of these sliders that we talked about, I adjusted this little curves layer a little subtly. It's not anything crazy. I always kind of try to do a little baby S curve. I don't know if that's like what you actually call it, but it kind of looks
That's
a
right.
little bit like an S. But I don't really even know what it does, to be honest. I will always kind of take a point on the bottom left-hand corner, drop it down a little bit, make it more dark and like contrasty, and then up here I'll raise it a little bit, kind of bring that punch.
Okay. So I can
Also
tell
with
you.
this.
So
Yeah,
the
go for it.
bottom left to right, your bottom x-axis
Uh,
is what your image already is, right? With the left being your darkest darks and the
mm,
right being your brightest brights.
nice.
Your y-axis from the bottom to the top is what you want to change the image to be. So
Okay.
it's the bottom again is your darkest darks, and the top of the graph is your brightest brights. So when you start it up, it's going to be a diagonal because that's just going to be like naturally, right? Like it's going to
Hmm.
be like this is going forward. Then anytime you move it, like you're saying, this is what I want to change the object of this pixel to be on this graph.
Right.
And so you're saying, I want this pixel to be darker or this to be brighter. So when you're like making an S curve, you're making the one parts of the darks a little bit darker and then the one parts of the brights to be a little bit brighter. I
There
don't
you
know if that
go.
helps at all, but I just
No,
made
I
a
mean,
video about it. So that's the only reason why I can be like,
no, that's sick.
clicked in.
And that kind of goes to you learn, even no matter how long you've been working in the space, like you're always learning new stuff. Like for
Yeah,
me, I hate to say it, I go off vibes, I go off feel, like, it's kind
that's a big
of,
part of it.
yeah, I'll mess around with it and I'll see what looks good. But yeah, now I know. So, once I go to work after this, after, my hour is up, I'll start telling everybody there what the curves mean.
Yep.
But moving on from that, we have another big part, which is this like selective color sort of feature in Camera Raw. And so what I'll do is I'll look at kind of the main colors that I see in this image, which there's a lot of blue, and there's a lot of like this, orange, reddish, magenta sort of situation going on with the skin. So I'll first go to this blue, and then this is where you'll kind of adjust it and get the colors you want out of this image. So I'm always a sucker for like really punchy blues. Obviously, it's like a little bit of a darker image, so I'm gonna try to lower the luminance a little bit, so it kind of gets to that navy. I'll mess with the purples as well, and it's kind of just going back and forth. It's not anything like too serious, but eventually you'll get a color palette that you like in the player, which ultimately is like a huge part of player treatment, which is like what colors come out of the jersey, what colors come out of the skin, and do they pair well together. And so that's what you're trying to do here with this color mixer feature in Camera Raw. And you'll mess around with it. I won't talk too much on it, but just see what you like. Every photo is different, so
Yeah.
it's kind of up to your personal preference.
I think that's the other thing. I know we were talking a little bit about kind of like things that you normally are relying on and consistency.
Right.
And there was another question that I don't think we've asked yet that I thought was so interesting. It was
Mm.
talking about like how you keep things interesting over the season when
Yeah.
basically like you don't want it to get stale and just feel like the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, they called it the visual evolution of those graphics, so the
Yeah.
content stays engaging all season.
Yeah, and that's I think one of the hardest parts of the type of work that we do. There's so much content that goes out. Adding in here a little curves layer to kind of add some more shadows into the middle part of the body, like we saw from that Google Gemini render. But yeah, it's a difficult thing. But where I think our team operates really well is that we have 6 designers. So whenever we get through a busy stretch where one person's making a lot of creative, you lean on and ask questions to other people that also want to help, and the more people you get into that room, the more ideas come to be, and it can make it a little bit more difficult to determine a course of action, but ultimately it's like you're never worse off for more ideas and different perspectives, and over the course of a season that becomes necessary. So that's kind of how we do it, is we talk a lot together as a team of what different elements we could add in and what different like city imagery we'd like to add. Because ultimately it's like you put a player in the graphic, you got a background, you have text, like how many different ways can you do that? And it's like cooking an egg, right? Like most people can make an egg, 1 or 2 different ways, but right, you can cook an egg in a million different ways.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of like how much you're willing to experiment and lean on others. I think is probably the best way I could put it.
No, well said. Also, I'm seeing that you are organizing your layers. Way to go. That's awesome. Putting them in proper folders with like player treatment.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
not
appreciate
my
that.
not my strong suit, but
Not
I
my
gotta
strong
I
suit,
gotta
so
do
I'm
it.
excited to see that you've done it live on
Yeah,
stream, at least given the illusion that you do it all the time.
for sure.
um, Drew's asking you how you got your job at the Chargers. Like, how do you get your design journey to start if that's something that you're interested in?
Yeah, yeah. So real quick, what I'm doing here with the curves is I'm kind of painting in where I think the light would be hitting. I keep the layer clipped on and I'm just taking a brush. For those who don't know, this is a layer mask. So you just um, like, I'll delete this layer mask. You click this little half circle button on the bottom. You click that and then you can start painting away, different areas that you want to come through. But sorry, remind me the question. How do I get my
Uh,
job at the Chargers?
yeah, because there's actually two that are kind of following up here. So Drew was asking like how you got a job at the Chargers and like how
Mhm.
your design journey started to get there. But then also Isaiah was asking about like what sport employers would be like looking for. They said that they heard in an interview that they're looking more if you fit into the team
Mhm.
rather than design skills sometimes, I guess, for like I guess your aesthetics.
Yeah, yeah. So I got my role. I was a senior in college when I was interviewing. I applied to, I mean, shoot, like I think I applied to 50 jobs, but it probably was more than that. Heard back from pretty much everybody. I got my first interview from 3, and a second follow-up interview only with the Chargers. It was the only team that I got the opportunity to interview with the second time. So I kind of knew like need to lock in. But yeah, I mean, I've done internships and stuff with different teams. Was really involved in my college's athletic department my first year, so that kind of helped me get familiar with the sports design space and kind of the cadence of like how a season will go. And there I covered basically every sport that wasn't football. So you're constantly making stuff, constantly talking with different like ads and different creative directors and stuff like that. So yeah, it's I would say get started as early as you can. Always finding a professional team or collegiate athletic department to get involved in, just to kind of get familiar with the space and the expectations. And then I would recommend to anybody start a social media page. Like
Yeah.
get your work out there. Like your personal work, I think speaks a lot more to your skill set, your interests, the type of intangibles that you really can't tell when you work with a brand guide. Like when all the rules are off, when all bets are off, what do you make? Like what are your tendencies? And when we interview at the Chargers, I can't speak for like my creative director, but the way that I evaluate talent is based off that, like your personal work, how much do you love it? Like how far do you take an idea? Because a lot can be said about people that can do that very well. Because those are people that I think get jobs in sports and keep jobs in sports.
Yeah.
So hopefully that helps a little bit.
And kind of like your Olympics post that you said you were working on your lunch break,
Yeah.
the things that you're just doing to be passionate about. I mean, go figure. It's the thing that you're kind of like, oh, whatever, just gonna do this on lunch break that end up blowing up. Which like that's just the way that it is, right?
Right.
But having the design choices that you've even incorporated into then, when like I know I called out that like you put a little blood on the jersey because it was part of the
Sure.
iconic moment of that iconic
Yeah.
photo that it's
Yeah.
referencing indirectly. And I think being able to see details like that go a really long way.
For sure,
Um,
for sure. Yeah. And real quick, I'm adding in these two layers here. I think this is kind of the second, like, kind of biggest part and biggest takeaway is like painting in the lighting and the shadows. So I have these two layers here, right? I put them, they're on normal blend mode now, but what I'll do is I'll put both on overlay. And what overlay does is it basically makes the shadows that you paint in less aggressive, and they make it look like they're masked onto the jersey in a really tasteful way. So I put these two layers are in every player treatment that I do with the Chargers. They're an essential. So I'll kind of show you what I do real quick. I'll take a brush here. I'll make it a little bit bigger so we can kind of get through this. I'll put the opacity at 20%. And I learned this from Reese Knight. I will not take credit for this, but I like messing around with it. And then I'll kind of analyze the image where I think the shadows would be really stark, like really where you would see the shadows. So that'd be like in the armpits. That'd be like underneath like someone's chin. Like obviously here, like where his leg props up, like this part of the image is not getting any light. I would imagine. And so you kind of just go through and analyze each of these places when you're designing. And the more you do it, the more like natural it'll make sense. Like you're almost like painting. Like I don't know. I'm not a super artistic person outside of Photoshop, but like whenever you see like a photorealistic image or you look at like a really nice painting at an art gallery, like you can see pretty clearly where they have the directional lighting and then where it casts shadows on the face. And at
right.
a broader scale, that's what we're trying to do here with our graphic is like figuring out where those shadows would be and kind of exacerbate them a little bit. So that's what the shadows on overlay blend mode, 20%
And for that
opacity.
layer, there's a little
Yes,
arrow that's pointing down next to it. What does that mean?
that's a clipping mask. So the command for that is, I think Command Alt G for Mac, I think.
Hmm.
I don't know. I got a different keyboard set up here today, not my office keyboard. But you'll do a clipping mask. And so what that does is if I unclip it, actually I can illustrate it like this. I have this layer, right? And if I take this black brush and I go like this, it doesn't stay on our image. But if you clip mask it, so Command Alt G, it clips onto the player image. So you can work within the bounds of the player without worrying about any of the brush strokes, like, being unattached and having like some free flyers. So it's a super useful thing. I recommend whenever you do player treatment that you'll have a set of clipping masks, like how we have here, all these little arrows, all attached to this player. That's a good call out because I tend to forget that you know, we need
I
to
love
do
clipping
that.
masks. I use them all the
Yeah.
time. I also realized that like if you are in any of the adjustment panels, there's also a nice button that also helps make it, and then
Yes.
a clipping mask, and then there's also a way that you can right click any layer and then also create a clipping mask. So you've got a keyboard
Right.
shortcut, a button, and also right clicking and going into it, whichever works best for you. I need to learn the
Yeah, you
keyboard
can't miss
shortcut because
it.
I always am, I don't know, fuddling around with buttons and right clicking.
Yeah,
So
for sure. For sure. And even something as simple as this, like, if you really want to get down to the details, like you'll take another brush and you'll kind of paint in underneath the skates, like just to show, like, that is where the shadows would cast the most. And I think that's what helps elevate your work at each stage in your careers, like just finding little ways to make things look just even more realistic. And I think with AI and stuff like all coming into play, one, it's a great tool to see like how really realistic images can look, but also it shows you kind of the roadmap of how to do that in your own work and how to, and I'll get a little bit better. But yeah, back to what you said, clipping masks are super key. Um, they're everywhere, so you can't miss them. They're a huge part of Photoshop.
since you called out your keyboard, Brockton also wants to know if you're using a mouse or if you use a drawing pad.
Mouse, big mouse guy.
Nice. Mouse guy.
Um,
Cool.
yeah, I said this in the last stream, but this mouse pad I carry with me everywhere, and you can see it's busted because I put put it in my bag and, probably don't organize it the best way that I could, but it's busted, but I carry it with me everywhere. Yeah, big mouse guy. Was using a trackpad for like the longest time, just because that's when I got started with Photoshop. I didn't really have the money to go buy a mouse. It was rough
Yeah.
times back in the day. But yeah, now I got a mouse, and that's kind of how I do all the lighting and shadows and everything.
Great. Zach's also saying, please do more live streams in the future with Jorge. Yeah, no, I mean, also, you can also check out the previous one as well. Obviously,
Yeah,
love having you on. Obviously, the chat is going off. I'm trying to keep up with the questions here. There's so many, but I also want to make sure you get through all your stuff. So obviously, there's plenty of room for people to ask you questions and learn more. I saw
sure.
even earlier Nate was asking about your relationship with using like 3D assets, and I'm wondering,
Mhm.
these are probably provided to you often because I know you said that you mostly stick to
Yes.
Photoshop. And then
Yeah.
there was another question about the collaborative environment. If like you feel like everyone on your team are like kind of like all working together, or if people tend
Mhm.
to keep recipes to themselves. I'm guessing with like 3D and stuff, also like you got to share assets, you got to work together, right?
For
Like,
sure. Yeah.
um,
So real quick, the second part of our like lighting and shadows is now we're doing the lighting. So same process as shadows, but we got a white brush instead of a black brush. And then we're painting in where we think the light would hit. So the top of the skates, top of the knee, obviously are the places that are getting the most directional lighting. And then obviously like the outer edges of the shoulders. And then you get a little bit of reflection through the skates, or sorry, through the ice. So that'll come up through here, a little bit on the bottom here. But yeah, I just want to touch on that real quick. Same process as shadows, but just kind of the opposite. And then you talked about collaboration and
yes.
what that process is like. Yeah, it's awesome. And we don't really keep family recipes, like, or I guess I don't keep family recipes. We give them to everybody. Like everyone knows kind of the nitty gritty of someone's style. Like I've gone through this particular process with different people on our team. Other people on our team have gone through processes for logo designs or for like vector artwork. Like I don't work in Illustrator at all. Like it's like it's like my left hand. Like I just don't use it, but I know I should. And so, I'll have, a couple of our designers come with me. I'll ask questions about how do you make this a logo, or do you have any recommendations for this? How do you export this for print? Because I don't really do a lot of print stuff. How do you export stuff for merchandise? We got people that are really great about that. So we all kind of feed into each other's weaknesses and kind of lift everyone up. So it's an awesome team. Like I cannot speak highly enough about like our collaboration, and I'm spoiled that this is like my first job out of college, like full time, being able to work with people that are like they make me better, right? So it's
Yeah.
like that's the collaboration. And I think the other question is about like 3D assets and what I use there. I'll do a little bit of stuff in Adobe Dimension. I've actually tried to build that out as part of like my portfolio is like building out like 3D elements and stuff. People can do it with AI. I know some people do, but I really want to understand like how do you make 3D elements. So sometimes I'll do stuff in Blender, sometimes I'll do stuff in Adobe Dimension. Other times I'll just find images from Google, and I'll make it look like they were 3D. Like I'll try to get the lighting and shadows to fit the space that I'm working in, even though they were rendered by somebody else or whatever like that. Obviously, got to give credit to people who make those things, and if you can purchase them, you got to
Yeah.
support other artists. But yeah, but we have an amazing 3D animator on our side with the Chargers, and he'll give us assets. We don't get to do as many projects because over the course of the season, like he'll be caught on like game presentation,
Of
making
course.
all these really crazy things for our video board at SoFi, and then then we're working on like the graphics and stuff that they don't really overlap a little bit, but when they can, it's great. So that's a
Yeah.
little bit
I
about
know
the
I've
the
told you
3D.
before. I don't know if we were live or not when I've told you this or not before, but I would
Mm,
love, love, love to do something on a big screen at some
I think
point
you did
for
say
a
that.
stadium,
Yeah.
even if it's like, uh, uh, text, 777 if someone's being rowdy in the crowd. Like
Yeah.
even like a PSA, like that's in my career at some point. I want to be a designer of some element that goes
Right.
on a big screen
Man,
because I
it's
think
so
that
cool.
sounds so much fun. Um,
Sure. So
and
cool.
then I have a question from myself.
Yeah. Please.
And I'm just wondering, like, so obviously, uh, the idea of rivalries and teams and stuff like that is all part of the theater and all part of, I mean, some people really do get mad between teams. But do you guys ever talk to like other design teams on other teams in the NFL, or does everyone kind of stay in their own lane?
Yeah, we it kind of depends, right? I
Hmm.
think there's some teams that we're closer with just because we'll play them more consistently. I know it's kind of more up to the designer. Like I keep up with a lot of other designers that work for other teams, like
Yeah.
Jaden DeGrace. He works for the Commanders. Seth Hogan, he does stuff, or Spencer Hogan, sorry, works for Tampa Bay. And so I'll keep up with his work. And they're around my age, and I don't think we'll, as a Chargers staff, like get on a group call with different teams. But there's a lot of designers that will pick and choose who they really like their work, and
Yeah.
they'll follow. And especially with like different things that come up during the season, like if you play a game in Madrid or we played a game last year in Sao Paulo, like there's different types of procedures creatively that go into events like that. Like how do you
Yeah.
scale it? What did you guys do locally for Sao Paulo that we could be doing or whatever. So there's a lot of questions that can be asked to other designers. So it's always good to like network and connect. I try to
Of
connect with as
course.
many designers as I can, just because I have so many questions. And I would recommend anyone that wants to get into a career like this, like ask as many questions as possible. Like people want to help, at
Oh,
least
the
that I
chat has
found.
taken your advice there. The chat is
Yeah,
asking questions left and
I'm glad.
right.
Yeah, that's
I'm
what
so
it's
glad
for.
too.
That's what it's for. I that's how I was able to get my job. Like someone asked me
Yeah.
how I, was able to do this as a career. Like I got really good at asking questions. I kind of embarrass myself sometimes asking some silly questions, but ultimately, like they're all good
Never.
experiences, and people want to help you. At
Yeah.
least in I found. And if you guys have questions, like DMs are always open. Like I've hopped on a few calls with people that are about to graduate or interviewing right now. I want to help you guys get a job. Like that's I'm very lucky that I get to do this as a career. Like anyone that is interested, like I want to make sure they have everything that they can to parlay that into a job. It's hard to get a
Yeah.
job. It's hard to do this as a career, but it should not be hard because you don't know the answers to things. Like, let me give you the answers. If it's hard, let's make it a little bit easier in the other areas that we can. So that's
Absolutely.
my,
Well, I know we're like down to just a little over the last 5 minutes or so,
yeah.
which time has flown by. We haven't been able to get to all the questions. I don't think we will be able to get to all the questions. I do want to touch on like you're doing a gradient map real quick. Gradient map
Yes.
just changes your blacks and your whites to the colors of the spectrum that you're giving, but then you're
Yes.
putting it as a blend mode, as a screen to be able to change that and change the opacity of it, right?
100%. And this is something that I think we'd benefit from probably talking about in a longer format on a different live stream. Really briefly, I used it here just to kind of cool down the image. Like obviously, we talked about the blues and the ice, kind of that like darker cyan in the background. You get that through a gradient map. Like if you're having an issue with trying to get the player, we got the shadows right, but maybe we're missing the right coloration. What you'll do is you'll take a gradient map like this, which I have one already preset, like this blue, bunch of stops in it, but it's no science behind it. I kind of just will pick colors out of the background and make a gradient. I had this one preset, so I just dropped that in there, clipped it, put a screen blend mode. This is what it looks like normally. I got 100%. Like obviously it's a little bit too drastic, so the natural idea is okay. Let's lower it down a little bit. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, it's pretty good. And then you just experiment with blend modes, and
Yeah.
obviously we landed on screen. Kind of gets us that cool, you know, blue icy type of thing that we want, out in our poster. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good call out
A
because
nice
that's
way
an
to
important
also
part.
bring everything together. Already have questions in the chat about when we'll be doing another live stream together. Obviously, this is something that's resonating with the chat, so I'll be talking to the team, and we'll definitely have to bring you back as soon as possible.
I'd love to.
Also, have requests to do a stream on the layout and the composition side of like making sports design,
Sure.
typography. I know that like with your poster that we were kind of looking at the very beginning, you were doing some really cool stuff with text there.
Yeah.
That would love to learn more about that. Um, and then yeah, just I don't want anyone to feel discouraged if I didn't ask your question. We weren't able to get to all of them. But
Yeah.
all
Oh,
really,
I
really
love the
fantastic
questions.
questions.
Yeah, I
Um,
loved it. And then real quick, this is kind of like the last like little cherry on top, like little salt sprinkle on the eggs. is the rim light. And so this is kind of that thing that does take a little bit longer of a process, a little bit longer of a process, but basically you'll kind of go through in all the places that you would imagine direct light hitting. So like the top of the gloves, top of the shoulders. I'll zoom in real quick so you can see. I'm taking this brush right here at 44 pixels, 82% hardness, and I'm just subtly painting the edges. And oh my gosh, it is such a mundane and long process, but 1% better. That's what we
Well,
try to
dude,
do.
that's where we
So
need to get you a tablet here. This is
yeah,
tablet behavior that like the fact that you're doing this with a mouse would make me rip my hair out. So,
yeah, no,
uh,
it's true. This is true. But
uh,
kids these
what
days
else
and
we
their
got?
tablets, I'm a mouse and
Tablet
keyboard guy.
kids.
Yeah, seriously.
You're not an iPad kid.
Yeah, nah. I do it the old-fashioned way. I'll read a book every once in a while. So,
Yeah.
no, just kidding. But
I was
you'll,
checking out your I think it's even off this screen, even if I have you blown up here. It is, so they can't see it. And
uh,
this is something that we'll have to talk in another stream. But I do know that off to your side you have like a logo book, it looks like.
a logo. What are you talking about?
Like a physical book in your room next to your
Oh,
left.
right
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah, you know
we'll
me.
have to talk
I
about
live next
those
to
at some point.
yeah, I live next to a Barnes and Nobles, and I'm a sucker for anything design.
Yeah.
So I like to look through some of these. I'm not a big logo guy, but it's something I'm really trying to work on.
Yeah.
I think building out a brand is like, one of the coolest things you can do. And obviously, this is more like key art focused. So that's kind of the term that we use as designers is like this is kind of like a staple piece that you would see on social, but this doesn't really communicate like a brand. And a
Yeah.
brand will include like your main logo, your secondary logos. Like it will have a lot of storytelling elements behind the brand and communicating that to an audience. That's something that I'm looking to learn as well. And I talk a little bit about that on my page because I feel like as I'm learning, I get so excited. I just want to like share it with people. Like why would I keep this to myself?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what these bad boys are for.
Cool.
But for right now, the key art is keeping us busy. So I'm
Yeah,
trying to
like
get
I
through
said,
this.
definitely that's something that we'll definitely have to bring you back. We'll have to talk about some of your inspirations, like where you
Sure.
kind of get your resources. I know you've talked a lot about Reese. I saw that somebody in the chat even said that Reese is
Yeah.
the goat,
Yeah,
which
he's
so like
awesome.
that's kind of a shared industry thing.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
I know Steven Overturf, a good friend of
Oh,
the
nice.
show, saying that he doesn't think that many sport designers use tablets, which I think they're crazy for that.
This is
Uh,
true.
Raja is saying fantastic answers. Um, Trying to think of what else that we can do. And then for this ring light that you have going on,
Yeah.
or not your yeah, sorry, your rim light, not ring light. Do you normally just keep that at normal 100% opacity?
I'll do a few different things. So, if I'm really in a pinch, I'll just paint it really quickly like this. But, you want to learn a secret hack. What I'll do is I'll duplicate it. So Command J, I'll clip it again. I'll make it a smart object, and then I'll go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and then I'll kind of mess with that a little bit more. And so that'll kind of let the light emanate onto the player. And then stay with me now. You'll kind of mess with the blend modes again. So normally I'll do like screen or overlay, and
Mhm.
so it kind of gives it a more like complete effect, I'd say, rather than just like a particular outline around the player. You have both of these combined. It really elevates where the light would be hitting. So yeah, duplicate it, make it a smart object, filter, blur it, overlay blend mode. A little bit of
Fantastic.
steps. Once you do it for a
It's
while,
all a
you'll get the
process.
hang of it.
It's
Yeah,
all, throw everything into the pot, mix it up, and kind of get
right.
a thing. To that point, since we are at about time, would you mind pulling that Firefly board back up and we can just take a look
Yeah,
at kind of where we started, just to kind of show, or yeah, or even flip that on and off. I
yeah.
mean, yeah, like look at that difference. Like
I mean, it's
that night and day. I mean, quite
yeah,
literally, but like
yeah.
night and day.
Two,
Very
three,
cool
four,
stuff.
five, six, six,
Um,
seven. Oh, didn't mean to do
oh
that. Six or
no,
seven layers.
oh
Six
no.
or seven layers, and that's all it takes is just that and camera raw will help elevate a photo. And like you give me a couple of hours to do something like this, like we can really get it keyed in. But in an hour, I'm pretty happy with that. I think that
Definitely.
hopefully you guys can take away a few things just real briefly. The camera raw curves just for the overall shadows, painting in the lighting and the shadows with the overlay blend mode, 20% opacity on the brush, a little bit of a gradient map to give it that cool look, and then cherry on top with the rim light. Yeah, I think that covers basically most of what I do in detail. So hopefully that answers some of your questions. If I wasn't able to get to some of them, please shoot me a DM. I'm happy to answer them. But yeah, I
Yeah,
think that
actually, before we go, would you mind pulling up
yeah,
your Instagram one last time?
yeah, absolutely. Let me get it right here. Yeah, Jorges.psd on Instagram. I'm gonna try to do some more long form content. Try to get like some tutorials out on YouTube.
Yeah.
Haven't gotten there yet, but I'm gonna try to get to that before the season starts. But if you guys have any requests for that, please let me know. I'd love to kind of show you guys, help you guys a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No,
this
I mean,
is.
clearly there is a desire for it. If you have any questions about what you should make content about, I've got about 40 questions that will then
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I
that will
love
then
it.
get you started.
I
Um,
love it. And I got my site here too. For anyone interested, you can contact me here. Freelance stuff available for that. But yeah, I also have like
and that's
some PSDs. So
Jorge.psd.com. So
yeah,
JORGESPSD.com.
yeah. And so, I also have these PSDs that I sell that basically have what we talked about today, but in a little bit, more detail. If you kind of got the gist of it today and you're ready for that next step, we have these available here for you to
Fantastic.
purchase and learn from. They're all learning tools, so they're
And
available
there's
for
even one
you.
on sale right now, it looks like. So
Yeah,
that's great.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Take advantage of the opportunity. All right, guys. Well,
Perfect.
coming up next, right after this, with yours truly, we're going to be having Tyler Pate on the show. He's going to be creating texturized vector art and social content. And so I'll be hopping over actually onto that thing to then get up and going. So we might be starting like a minute or two late here. But I just want to say thank you so much to everyone in the chat. Once again,
Seriously.
please don't feel discouraged if I didn't get to your questions. So many awesome, really great questions. And it really meant a lot that you guys were so engaged and interested in stuff. To that point, we will be sure to have Jorge back on very soon. That way we can tackle some of these questions. But thank you so much for everything. You can also keep it going in the Discord. Make sure you message him. Make sure you follow him on Instagram. I mean, don't message him. Don't annoy him too much, but you know what I mean.
No, please. Welcome it. I love it.
But thank you so much, Jorge. It's been really
Absolutely.
great. Loved having you back on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to see you again. And thanks
Great
for
to
you
see you.
guys tuning in. It was really awesome to kind of show you guys a little bit of the behind the scenes. Hope to do more.
Also to Sam, who's saying that they missed it. Don't worry, this is available for replay immediately after we're done. I mean, we've got great stuff right after this that I'm also going to be streaming, so you might want to watch that live first. But then, after that, just check out the replay. So, all
Love it.
right, guys, we'll be
Love
right
it. Love
back.
it.